right, good morning to you, Anna.
Good morning, Yemi, this morning.
All right, so what we're looking at this morning, we saw pictures yesterday and, of course, videos of how Atiku Abubakar, the former vice president of this country, visited a former military head of state, that's IBB. And then alongside Makinde, we also saw, videos and pictures of him as well, that they both, visited IBB yesterday at his Minna residence. And then after that, they granted interviews, but then I think Makinde didn't even speak to any of the press, men. But for Atiku Abubakar, he answered some questions, and that is what led to this headline, that is trending online. Because he said some things. He said, APC is a party of forgers, is a party of riggers. Those are very strong statements to say. And then he had to break it down. And so by forging, he was trying to say that, okay, this party, they forge certificates, they reduce their age, and they do all sorts. And of course, for rigging too, he said they are even planning to rig this particular election that we are preparing for, that is the next general elections. And then he had to link it to the recent, the recent issue going on with the Senate. And then recently the Senate are saying they want to pass that law that will allow or accommodate both electronic transmission and manual transmission. Because according to majority of them, they are saying that because of electricity, even one of the senators mentioned that he doesn't have electricity in his village, and because of that, he said it is best to actually call for both electronic and then manual transmission. So Atiku Abubakar was saying these people are planning to rig election, because why is it that we cannot just focus on electronic transmission and allow INEC to determine whether they are going to work with that or not, whether it's going to be possible for them to work with that or not, instead of, opening the door, making room for any loophole that can actually, give room to rig elections. So these are the issues that we have in our hands. And then allow me to start from this meeting that they had. This is not the first time that we'll see politicians, still running for offices, meeting with, past head of state, past, maybe politicians as well, especially those that have retired. So there was a time that Peter Obi, met with the likes of Obasanjo, met with quite a number of persons, influential people in politics and the politics of Nigeria. So it's not new. However, Nigerians are asking, is there something that we should, look out for, looking at this meeting? And then, the details of the meeting was not really shared, but it's just that Atiku Abubakar came outside later to, answer some questions and then reply to the pressmen. So away from that, still talking about rigging and, of course, forging elections or forging certificates now. Most persons are not even bothered about that. The main issue that people are concerned about is the issue of rigging. And that's why the protests happened, in Abuja recently. Peter Obi, even Amechi joined the protest to say that we don't want that. We want them to pass, electronic transmission. That is the only thing that Nigerians, are calling for at this moment. So it depends on the Senate now and, of course, the president. I think at this point in time, he should weigh in on this matter, because regardless that, it's the duty of the Senate to pass the judgment. At the end of the day, there's something called presidential assent. He must assent, whatever it is that they pass. So, and then, just to save himself, some, talks, some discussions that is not so good for his administration, I think it's best that he speak on this matter. And then away from that, also Makinde, we're also looking forward to what is going to happen. And then one more thing that Abubakar mentioned is the fact that, the constitution of the ADC does not allow for zoning. And that is where I have, a little bit of issue. Because, Amechi recently said that, the presidency of the ADC should be zoned to the south. And then Atiku Abubakar is saying that the constitution of the ADC is different from that of the PDP, and then it doesn't allow for zoning. So this might lead to, some problems for the ADC as we speak now. And then this might actually cause a lot of issues. We don't want, what happened to PDP to happen to ADC. Yeah, we are not parties about, I'm just saying, for the sake of, a good opposition, a party for the country. Because at the end of the day, the major reason why most persons don't go out to vote is because, according to them, the political parties have failed to give the ticket to the best person that they will love, to be the flag bearer. So these are the issues. So I don't really understand that. And I think it's the duty of the big shot in the ADC to explain that to Nigerians, that what does Atiku Abubakar mean by the constitution of the ADC does not allow for zoning, when other political parties, should have that entrenched in their constitution. I mean, we talk about federal character. At the end of the day, no single region should be made to contest election or become the flag bearer. So these are the issues that we have in our hands. He spoke about election rigging. He spoke about the forging certificate, and of course, the zoning system. Don't forget that quite a number of firms I have mentioned on this show that ADC is silent about their zoning system. Maybe it's because of issues like this. Because at the end of the day, Atiku Abubakar, who is a big shot in the party, came out to say there's no zoning system. It's going to become a big issue because there are people in that political party who are looking forward to zoning. I mean, let's zone it. If it's going to the south this time, it can go to the north the next time. Okay, so these are the issues that we have in our hands this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's also fair to start from the PDP particularly, and to know that was one of the crises that broke forth in the PDP, especially when the faction of Nyesom Wike said there has to be zoning in the PDP, and others are saying, maybe not, that's not exactly what we want. But the issue of zoning, according to Atiku, just like you mentioned, you don't expect a party that is just building the structure to consider zoning as a thing yet. Why? For many reasons. For one, I'm not sure they have enough political might across the state. So even if you want to consider zoning, they are not there yet. They are still building. So it's okay for them to say, oh, you are not considering zoning, but it's just only a matter of time. If they get a chance at power, I'm so sure it will be one of the things on their table because, of course, people would defect from different parties across the state. Because, of course, you understand how the dynamic and vast and maybe complex the Nigerian state is, especially having to do with 36 states, different people from different regions, some of them having important things to do, some of them have had history in the political space, and you have to consider a lot of that to say, oh yes, perhaps zoning is the right way to go. But not to believe all that issue of zoning, I think one of the things we might see from this conversation is that electoral transparency is now on the table of discourse. And just like you mentioned too, maybe all eyes are on INEC, on the National Assembly, as well as the president to say, oh yes, all of these allegations that people are bringing to your table, you have to debunk them. But how do you debunk something when the Senate sat on something to say, yes, we can work with having manual transmission of election results from polling units and having electronic transmission as well? Why a lot of persons are clamoring for, let's just have one. I think I'm privy a bit to this. I was part of the electioneering process at the last election, and I was very much in it because, of course, I used the beavers, and I did a number of things during the election. And I discovered that maybe the concerns of the Senate would be that some places don't yet have a bandwidth, a network bandwidth that is strong enough to accommodate that. But there's been claims also that beavers can actually transmit without internet in the sense. So you have to consider that as well, that you must put that on the table. You cannot just say that we want two ways. We want transmission via the electronic media, and we also want transmission via manual. It's going to cause a sense of, okay, so this is likely to happen. If you say you want to use both transmission methods, okay, there's a chance that presiding officers and those at polling units would decide to say, you know what, we're not even using the beavers at all, we're not using the electronic transmission of result at all, let's just go. But they have also given clauses that for that to happen, there has to be signatories. Every other party that is involved in that must put their hand to paper to say, yes, we are signed to this, we are signing this, that yes, let's use this because this did not function. But can we get to a point where we optimize our technology? Many countries in the world are not even going out using ballot papers and all of this. Life is moving so fast. I think Nigeria is still sleeping. If we really want to, that's the question why people are asking for real-time, transmission of results. Because if you cannot give that, what can you give? It's not as if you are going to kill yourself to give that. It's just putting structures in place, getting the right things to do, and then having that political will or the backing to say, let's go ahead and do this because this is right. If Nigerians are clamoring for this, give them what they are clamoring for. It's not too difficult. It's not too bogus to ask for this kind of thing. So you have to consider the voice of the Nigerian people, and you have to consider that this must be on the table of discourse, not just something to just brief ourselves about. And again, I will also mention the fact that it's okay for Atiku to come out to say some of these things, and in a way, it's either Atiku is right or wrong. Because if you have to say, okay, so who is in the best position to have this conversation that a party rigs, a party furges. Who can say that? Atiku has been in the game for quite a while. Like you said, he's a big gun in the party. It's a big gun in the political space. He's been there for a lot of years, right? So if he must have been saying this, not just out of points. Perhaps he has some points. Perhaps he's seen some things, right? I'm not saying that he's also out of that, like he's not part of the system. I'm saying that he must have seen this. So it takes someone who is in the system to know what's operating in the system. So if he says forgers and riggers, I'm afraid we should beg the question, or perhaps we should do a bit of investigation to know that, to maybe to consider whether he's saying the right thing or the wrong thing. But I think it's left for the ruling party now, as well as the Senate. Because why do we have to have a protest before you do what is right? So I remember yesterday I was listening to Senator Monguno, as well as the Senate President Godswill Akpabio, and they were saying that, oh yes, we are doing this for the people. So we are doing it for the people after an Occupy National Assembly protest. Why didn't you do it for the people before they came out to bring out placards to say we want this? Why didn't you know what they were saying before? And again, it's still a question for them, because Nigerians say they want real-time electronic transmission of results from polling units. You are saying, well, we might not be able to guarantee that. So let's have a mix of that. Let's Let's have transmission manual. Let's have transmission electronically as well. So it's many persons. In fact, I think Kenneth Okonkwo also said something. He's also a lawyer, and he said something quite interesting. He said, if this does not go, if this does not get passed in terms of like real-time results transmission, then Akpabio should be removed. They should find every way to, because according to him, he said Akpabio is the reason behind all of this. He's the one that is not making this, that doesn't want that to happen, to have a real-time transmission of results in the country. And so, a lot of persons are also saying that, well, if Akpabio is doing that, then what about the other party members? What about the senators, all of them? Why are they sleeping and putting their heads on one side? Why is someone not saying, no, this can be done too, right? Because this is 2026. If we don't start this conversation now, when can we really start the conversation of having real-time, or trying to avoid election or election malpractice, when do we have that conversation to say, I know we've had issues. People have questioned a lot of, also independent electoral observers have said, some of the elections we still do in Africa is still like very, very far from reality. Because if you consider the age that we are, technology has advanced, but Nigeria is still sleeping. Civilization has gone across and come across, and we are still not there yet. So when do we want to start having this kind of thing? Do we have to wait for the next election now? Say, okay, so now let's try that. When we've tried a system that is not working. If some have said, especially about the things that they are doing, and I think maybe the APC would need to put their house in order as well. If they are really sure everything Atiku is saying is not correct, perhaps. Because he also laid claims that it's like the APC has involvement with the judicial arms of the government. And so they're trying to do everything, because there's obviously a form of involvement of the judicial process that is favoring the APC to do whatever they want to do. In fact, some have said maybe the judiciary is also interested in rigging come 2027. But anyway, hey, we keep our fingers crossed and see what happens.
Yeah, we do that. So one thing that you mentioned is talking about the court issue, because Akpabio himself mentioned that the reason why they don't want to include real time is because they don't want anyone to take that to court after the election and say, INEC passed real-time electronic transmission, and then they did manual transmission in some areas, and that's why we're bringing the case to court. So Akpabio is trying to avoid that might cause issues, especially after the election. But at the end of the day, it's the duty of the INEC to still determine whether it's going to work or not. The last election, just like you mentioned, a lot of irregularities, some persons could not even vote, some persons could not turn print because of the issues. So I believe that INEC must have been able to pick one or two, from the issues that they encountered last election. And that's the main reason why we are saying that, okay, INEC should look at those areas and look for how they can actually better the situation this time around. How many years ago now? About 3 years ago now. So is it that INEC has not done anything at all? Anything at all to ensure that some of the issues that they encountered the last time, they won't encounter it again? Sorry. I mean, these are part of the things that we should begin to talk about. Because if INEC cannot assure us that, some of the things that they encountered the last time, they will try their best not to encounter the same thing this time around. So what are they really doing? And regardless of, let's not even talk about, the resources. So, and then these are the issues. And one more thing that you mentioned is, allow me to take it back to the issue of zoning now. When APC came to power, it was a coalition. It was a combination of some political parties coming together to form APC. Talk about ACN, talk about CPC, and then one thing APC did was that they understood the concept of zoning. They knew that the president in power at that time is from the south, and so they had to bring up someone from the north. It was whether you like it or not. See, this is what led to. The issues that PDP is going through at this point in time. Let's not forget what happened in 2022-23, when at that time some persons wanted presidency to be zoned to another region, to be zoned to the south. But at that point in time, PDP said, okay, we are zoning to the north. See, if you don't talk about zoning is like a very important aspect of election. It determines whether you win or not. Because you talk about federal character. So if ADC is saying, okay, it's not entrenched in our constitution, good luck to them. The only window now is if ADC can agree. I mean, if the majority can agree to say, okay, no zoning system, we want to bring this person, or we want this person to emerge, we are giving this person the ticket as a flag bearer of the party, that's cool. But if some persons do not agree with the fact that there's no zoning, it will lead to issues whether you like it or not, because there are other individuals who are interested in zoning. Okay, if this region does not get it this time around, maybe next time. So even APC, when it came to power, they understood zoning system, and that's why they had to. Do you think APC would have won that election? If they are put up maybe someone from the south as their flag bearer? It's debatable, really. No one can tell. But they understood the concept of zoning. So good luck to the ADC if they decide to say no zoning system. We want to put up a person from this region, and that person is going to be our flag bearer. If they can agree on that, that is fine. So good luck to them in that aspect.
Let me just pass a comment very quickly, and that's to say that. But when you mentioned what is the INEC doing, I think I mentioned it one time too, that for every election, after the election, INEC should start working. Yeah. And I know one of the problems we face is that we have new INEC chairman all of a sudden, and then it starts getting to know how things are operating in the place, and a lot of that again. But what do you say to the issue that we have a disparity in what was presented at the House of Reps and what was presented at the Senate chambers? So that's another conversation, right? That's why a lot of persons are saying maybe there's a lot of plans to rig 2027 elections, because you can't have disparity in what you have at the Assembly, the National Assembly, as well as the House of Representatives. It should not be the same.
All right, so I think it's time to take weather reports. We'll visit this conversation again as we progress.